Disability poverty has always existed. People with disabilities have always been left behind in our society. And there's been a lot of work done on advancing disability rights, but it hasn't necessarily resulted in eliminating significant barriers, including the barrier of living in poverty. People are worse off today than ever before when they live in poverty, and particularly people with disabilities, who make up over 41% of people living in poverty and over 50% of people who are food insecure. So basically, 1 in 4 people with disabilities lives in poverty. So in the fall of 2020, when we knew during the pandemic that people with disabilities were the last thought when it came to any kind of emergency relief, finally came a promise of a Canada disability benefit by the Prime Minister. And the advocacy community, friends, supporters, allies, and people with disabilities who had been working on these issues said, we need to build capacity to really build a movement across this country to make sure that we hold this government accountable for its promise. Make them keep the promise. So C-22 is now legislation, and the harder work begins of forming regulations and making sure that those regulations are co-created with lived experience to make sure now that the benefit that results, that ultimately gets implemented, is in fact adequate, adheres to the principles that we have articulated as Disability Without Poverty, and gives people fair access to this benefit no matter where they are in the country, as long as they have a disability. They are eligible, they can apply easily, they can receive a top-up benefit that lifts them out of poverty. It's our job now to organize province by province, as we have been in British Columbia, in Alberta, in Ontario, in Quebec, and beyond, to make sure that our provincial governments honor the top-up nature of this benefit and don't claw back, and also live up to their responsibility of their provincial programs and services and benefits. This is a legacy. This is huge. If we get a sufficient, adequate benefit in place, we have done something tremendously important for the future of people with disabilities in this country, who are struggling today to pay rent, who are ending up asking for handouts on the street. We're not giving people dignity, although our legislation across the board keeps amplifying the notion of dignity for disabled people. Today, we are forcing disabled people to beg for food. And that's not my Canada. And that's where allyship of labor, working together, united in a movement, is so important, because it's really about our Canadian values when it comes to people with disabilities and their lived realities. Ending disability poverty is the right thing to do. We're on the brink of doing the right thing in the right way. The only way we're going to ensure an adequate benefit is if every one of us stands up for the rights of people with disabilities living in poverty to be lifted out of it.